writing an anonymous letter after initial. My own discharge.
True that.
Let's check out my clock.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 7:02. I'll do roll call. Jennifer Brown,
I'm here, yes.
Megan Doyle,
Here.
Mary Claire Edmonds,
Here.
Nicole Flowers,
Here.
Tom Koba,
Here.
Adam Scobie,
Here.
Anna Tedros.
Here.
Nicole Wilhelm is excused, Cindy Whitten is excused, and I am here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people present. All right, if we could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, this is the May 26th, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting of the Milford Board of Education. We have a few agenda items tonight. I will turn the meeting over to Dr. Kutaya for item 3, Capital Improvement Plan.
Thank you, Ms. Glennon and board members. This is the annual review of the capital improvement plan, which will require action this evening. So I'll turn things over to Mr. Brennan. He will be providing a little CIP 101 to start off with as to what it is and why we do it, and then go into the details. Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Dr. Kutaya, Ms. Glennon, members of the board. So in your package in front of you, you will find a list of our capital improvement plan. This is the capital improvement plan that the Board of Education will submit to the mayor each year. We do this on a regular basis in May, early June. And what we do is we list the items that are the capital needs of the district for the next 5 years. In this package, you will see a summary format of the items on a one-pager, which lists the items by year with the dollar amount that is an estimate associated with that. And then following that will be a detailed description of what that actually entails. Couple quick things to mention is that this approval tonight does not carry any dollars associated with it. Well, it does not carry any funding associated with it. This is what the estimated costs are for these projects are at this point in time. The next step in the process would be to give it over to the mayor, and he would then go through a series of approval processes with this document. One would be planning and zoning, then Board of Finance, then it goes to Board of Aldermen. For that final approval is when we would receive funding for the items that are put forth by the mayor and the Board of Aldermen at that time. For projects that are eligible for reimbursement, those projects would then be turned over to the Permanent Schools Building Facilities Committee for the process of making sure that we go through the correct process of getting all the funding. At the bottom, there's a couple facts that I included for you this evening. One is the reimbursement rate. This is the current reimbursement rate of 37.86% for renovation, alterations, and extension, and then 27.86% for new construction. At this time, I would like to give a high-level summary of some of these projects that we've included in this outline here for this capital improvement plan, and then open it up for any questions that you may have. As you will notice, some of these projects are carried in multiple years. So for instance, you would see miscellaneous improvements, HVAC, ventilation, boilers, masonry in 27-28, and then you will also see a similar one in 29-30. So as I'm going through the summary phase, I'll just read the description of that summary one time, just as an efficiency clause here. So in 26-27, a number of projects that we have listed in this first year here, two of the bigger ones that we are looking at is the JFK Elementary School new construction architectural and engineering design, and also the Live Oaks Elementary School new construction architectural and engineering design. So this funding here is specifically drawn out for just the architectural engineering design phase, which would include schematic design, site logistics, developmental phase, preliminary cost estimates, and some construction documents that are needed in order to get those cost estimates for the actual project. Blueprints, technical specifications, all those elements that an architect would need to design in order for a construction company to actually engage in that work. So this is that first phase of the project with our long-range planning work, and this right here would give us the funds to get that work started and have an architect engage in that process and get us some more concrete designs and cost estimates. Next up on that list is the Joseph A. Foreign High School Technical Education Facility improvements. So as this board is aware, we are currently engaging in the process of the Tech Ed wing at Jonathan Law. This is a project that is currently under the purview of the Permanent Schools Facilities Building Committee. And we are at the phase right now where we are about to go out to bid for construction of that actual project. This project here is in an effort to create that parity between the two schools. Just as a small reminder to this board, we initially had asked for $10 million in funding across the year 22-23 and 23-24, which we had hoped would cover both of those projects. And with cost escalations and the rising amount that it costs to do anything these days, that project was only able to be funded for the one school, Jonathan Law. So this is an effort to create that parity between the two schools. Next up would be miscellaneous improvements, which is our HVAC, ventilation, boilers. So this is an ongoing thing that you will see on a regular basis in many CIPs, along with some of the other items of this recurring nature. This is in an effort to keep up with the needs of our schools. So this is not a one-time project. This is a project that you will see as a result of aging infrastructure and aging HVAC equipment. And one of the things that we need to do is make sure that we stay on top of that in order to keep away from situations that could occur with failing HVAC-related items. Joseph A. Foreign Auditorium Lighting, Rigging, Sound, and Finishes. So this was original construction in 1973 to the building, the lighting, finishes, rigging for this auditorium, and they are critically needed. They are at the point where failure could occur at any time, and we are in a need to replace these items. So this is beyond just the aesthetic look for the actual auditorium. This includes items that would help ensure that we have safety, functionality, and the ability to host contemporary events to meet the current performance of our students. Parking lot repairs is another one of those items that you would see on a recurring basis. This one is to address the deteriorating conditions of our surfaces when they are nearing the end of their useful life. This has to do with some of the weather that we experience, the heavy traffic, and some of the natural aging of just asphalt in general. Some of the cracking and potholes and areas of crumbling are the areas that we notice that bring it to the forefront of our capital improvement plan, and that would be addressed through this repair here. Joseph A. Foreign High School pool renovation. This, as a reminder to this board, this was one of those projects that we are layering in multiple years, much like we are looking at with the architectural design for the new school construction. Last year, this board approved the engineering design for the Joseph A. Foreign High School pool renovation. And that engineering design, which is currently out to bid, will secure an architect who will take a look at the current pool design that we have right now, take a look at some of the issues we're experiencing, and they will provide a couple different options that will give us a path moving forward so that the pool will be in a condition that can last for the next 20 to 30 years. This phase of funding here is asking for the funding which would actually secure what that architect is saying is the best course of action. So this funding here would actually do the renovation itself. First phase last year was for the architectural design, and this one will actually give us the renovation. Install various, various schools air conditioning. So this is an ongoing multi-phased effort to install air conditioning. This is something that we've talked about as a board in previous years, and it's one of the things that's been included in our some of our board policy with when we're considering new construction. Air conditioning will be one of those things that we consider. So air conditioning also helps improve some of the air quality at the schools as well. So this install various air conditioning is one of those things that is going to help with some of those excessive heat indexes on the days that are occurring later in the school year and early on in the school year. The Joseph A. Foreign Design and Engineering for HVAC. So this one is a comprehensive design and engineering preparation for our chiller plant at Foreign High School. This one is very important. That chiller plant there, and Mr. Bradbury, who is also with us this evening, Mr. Bradbury, hello. Thank you for joining us. Can go into detail about some of these projects and why the need for them exists, but the chiller plant in general is one of those things that's a very important component of Foreign High School because it helps make sure that that school can operate. And if that chiller plant wasn't in existence, the humidity levels inside of that building become to a level that are just not bearable. Jonathan Law High School Design and Engineering for HVAC mechanical rooms. That's another one of those projects that we are ensuring that we are staying ahead of some of those items for HVAC. So HVAC at Jonathan Law and at Foreign High School are one of the priorities on this list as a result of ensuring that we are keeping that indoor air quality up to the right standards and making sure that we have a centralized heating and cooling equipment with modern and more efficient units. In year 27-28, you will see new construction for the JFK Elementary School and Live Oaks Elementary School construction phase. Both of those are very similar project descriptions. They will engage in that actual construction phase to realize a new elementary school. Some of the focus on that would be stringent safety protocols to make sure that students, staff, neighbors in the area are all held to a real safe standard of project. And we also want to ensure that there's educational opportunities for our students as we engage in that process. The next one that I will go through is the athletic fields, which are our artificial turf replacements. So every 10 to 12 years or so, which is the expected lifespan of our artificial turf fields, we need to replace those in order to keep them up to use for our students. The fields are at a level right now where they were last installed in the 2014 and 2015 school years. So they're nearing the end of their useful life, and those need to be replaced as they receive heavy use from many of our students. You will also see on a recurring basis the asbestos abatement, tile replacement, tunnels, pipes, and insulation. This is just part of our ongoing multi-phase approach to remove asbestos and any other hazardous materials from our schools. This would include replacing floor tiles, ceiling tiles, pipe fittings, and insulation. The next two items that I wanted to talk about in year 28-29 are the Joseph A. Foreign HVAC upgrades, which are phase 1, and the Jonathan Law HVAC upgrades, phase 1. So these have to do with the chiller plant and also the rooftop units at Law. So chiller plant is the Foreign High School, and rooftop units are the system that we currently have at Jonathan Law. And this is looking at a phased-in approach of upgrading those items to ensure that we are continually maintaining our schools to a safe indoor air quality standard. In year 29-2030, we have the Joseph A. Foreign HVAC upgrades phase 2 and Jonathan Law High School HVAC upgrades phase 2. So we broke this phase in consultation with Mr. Bradbury. We broke this into 2 phases, partially because in order to undertake a project of that size, it would be a very significant undertaking in 1 year. The other part of that as well is that we are trying to get an understanding for the exact amount that we would need in order to complete those 2 projects. So being able to have this in a later phase, a phase 2 part of that project, gives us that ability to now understand what the design has called for and what the phase 1 of that project has been able to complete. And then you will also see in the format of this CIP, separated down at the bottom, the long-range facilities planning programming needs. So these are outputs of our long-range facilities planning and some initial thinking on career pathways that we would like to engage in. And this is just an initial thinking on some of these career pathways. This would be something that you would see through different board meetings and instructional highlights as we go throughout the year, and we would talk more in depth about these projects. We did include some initial thinking around these career pathways with some rationale and some thinking about what we would want to design within the schools, but this is just an initial thought of what some of those career pathways, some of those dreams that we have for the district would be. That's the reason why those aren't folded into those 5-year capital improvement plans as of right now, because we want to give it due time to discuss them and think about them as a board. But we wanted to get some initial thinking around some of those different programming needs without calling out any dollar amounts right now, without folding them into that actual 5-year plan. At this time, we're happy to take any questions you may have on any of these projects.
Questions from board, Mr. Scobie?
I think I know the answer to this one, but when we're looking at the design phase, and I guess the construction phase too, for any of the long-range planning, are we going to, as a board, go through a similar process of vetting and choosing which firm we're using, like we did for the previous proposal?
So that would not be the typical process for this, because those projects would be eligible for state reimbursement. So the process is that the Board of Aldermen would turn the project over to the Permanent Schools Facilities Building Committee, and once it's under their purview, they go through the process of vetting and selecting those architects and contractors.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. Just so we're all on the same page. So in 2025, 2026, this time last year, we asked for this capital improvement plan. So for everyone to know, literally on May 19, 2026, this architectural and engineering services for pool design only in the last couple weeks came to Permanent Schools Facility. So any decision we make now, money won't be allocated or come to the Permanent Schools Facility or assigned until about a year from now, from this day. So we have a lot of time in advance for picking and planning and going through the process and from there. And so that process then takes, an RFP goes out, which takes another 30 days to go through. And then you go through the architectural firms, and then you make the plans and go through all this process. So I think it's important to know the timeline on these. I appreciate breaking out each one of these. I think that's one of the things that we saw with law and former and with the technical project, is not knowing the scope of the project and costs more so, what is allocated. So, in the same plan is that we're continuing work on each of these areas. I don't have any specific questions at this point, otherwise.
I have a question. I'm wondering, so, when we completed the work on the long-range facilities master plan, we had designated for middle school West Shore, the construction timeframe was school year 31-32 to 32-33, so which falls beyond this 5 years. That would be the next pocket of stuff. But does that 2-year timeframe for construction include the architectural design work? Or should that be in 2030-31?
Are you talking the constructions phase specifically?
No, I'm talking
Oh,
the
sorry.
beginning phases for the first middle school. So
Architectural and engineering.
whereas this year, in 26-27, you have architectural and engineer design phase for the elementary schools, and then construction is the following year.
Mhm.
My question is, would West Shore architectural and design phase be in 30-31, or would it not happen until 31-32? If the construction phase is supposed to be 31 through 33.
Yes, so,
Or is
We
that all
did-
Do we
inclusive?
need to add West Shore?
yes, I think that would probably be a good move at this point to add that into this programming. I think one of the things that the capital improvement plan tries to emphasize is really that focus on the 26-27 year. And that
Correct,
as we,
yeah.
yep, so we could definitely add that in.
26, 27? That's what we're asking for.
Yeah.
So it would need to be, if we're starting in 2031. It would be added.
Yeah, could add it.
31, 32.
Mhm.
So just like this was architectural, this is the
Yes, it'd be 2
construction.
years after.
So 2030 to 2031.
So if you follow that format, it should be 2 years after.
This
With
is
the JFK.
construction though.
Yeah, So if we've,
It's 1 year after.
I'm saying, so the construction phase is 2 years after the completion of the construction phase for the elementary schools. So it would follow that similar format of being 2 years after when we're asking the architectural engineering design phase for the JFK and Live Oaks, which would be in the 28, 29.
So in 26, 27, we're doing architectural design. In 27, 28, we're asking for the funding of new construction.
So in 28.
And construction won't start until 29.
So in 28, 29 is when you would include the architectural engineering design phase for that project.
So I'm looking at the chart from Perkins. Their construction block is 31, 32, and 32, 33 for West Shore. Construction block for elementary is 29, 30, and 30 and 31. So 3 years before, we're asking for architectural and design. 2 years before, we're asking for funding. Construction starts in 29. So if we follow that same pattern, 3 years before 31, 32, which is the year that construction starts, would be 28, 29, is when we should be adding West Shore's architectural design. And then 29, 30 would be new build.
No, 31, 32. Oh, you have to ask for the money ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're making that
Yes, you can add
amendment.
that in.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Glennon.
So modification, just to summarize, board members, 28, 29, we'll be adding new West Shore, new construction dash architectural and engineering design phase for 3 million. Knowing that that number is just a placeholder and in 3 years it may be different. And then in 29, 30, 29, 30, we'll be adding West Shore Middle School new construction dash construction phase. Do you wanna put a dollar amount in there?
Yes.
Was it 115?
So it's 3 million for,
No, the total bill of the middle school. I'm looking for the last number that Perkins used.
In 26, I think,
126,
was the,
middle?
or thereabouts, I mean, it's.
I'm looking in the slide deck.
It's in-
All right, I'll get back to you on the number here, I'm just looking
Okay.
through slide decks.
All right, other questions? Mr. Kova?
Just to clarify, the roof projects don't show up on here because they were approved prior to 2025?
which right now, our current roofing projects, we're in a good shape right now. So in this next 5 years, and Mr. Bradbury, correct me if I'm wrong, I think with the current funding that we have, we're able to maintain our current roofing structure in the current conditions that they're in.
Okay.
That's why they wouldn't, that's why they don't
They're
show
not
up.
on here, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ms. Flowers?
Thank you. I have just some general CIP questions to
Sure.
start. So, last year, when you submitted this 5-year plan, they approved 5.4 million. How much did you ask for? 5.4 or was it more?
We asked for that 5.4.
You asked for 5.4, okay. So every year, we submit a 5-year plan, and then I assume years can shift depending on what was approved for that current year.
Correct, that's very accurate, yes.
Okay. And I actually wanted to ask something to follow up with Mr. Scobie's question. So when the design phase is sent out to bid, it goes to, sorry, what committee?
Permanent Schools Facilities Building
Okay.
Committee.
And that plan, we never have any input on that plan, we don't see it, that's a different group of people who,
So there's a couple distinct areas of approval for that. One of them would be the educational specifications, which are approved by this Board of Education.
okay,
The plans, specs, and estimates are also approved at this level, but those are in more in-depth detail at the permanent schools level.
okay,
So typically, the process is we meet at a minimum of one time per month at permanent schools, and we go through various updates that would be provided at that level, and there's an oversight, there's a committee of individuals that are part of that building committee, and what they do is they go through the process of hiring an architect who takes the lead on helping design and oversee that project, and then from there, once you go to the phase of finding a contractor, they would select that contractor. And then through those monthly meetings, they get the updates of the project. They ask the questions about certain elements of the project to make sure that it's on track and in line with what we had decided to do. And then they also approve any kind of payments that would be requested from those different architects and contractors. So there's a close level of oversight at that level from the permanent schools. But to answer your question, yes, at that point, it's turned over to the building committee.
So, and just to clarify, we have two board members.
On that
It's a
board.
Board of Aldermen committee,
yeah,
and the Board of Aldermen appoints two members from the Board of Education. So right now, it's Ms. Doyle and Mr. Kova at the moment.
okay,
Which would act as representatives.
There's,
of the
yeah,
board.
they're the representative board.
okay. And I'm just curious about HVAC. So, various schools install air conditioning for $1 million. So do we have, I mean, is there conversations of an order of events for schools? I mean, obviously, we had a very hot day.
Mhm.
It's gonna be quite some time before we can properly cool teachers and students. So kind of, what can we do?
Sure.
What is sort of, yeah, I think we need to actually, have a plan here. Cause if some
Absolutely.
schools aren't seeing air conditioning for 10 years, that's a problem.
Can I piggyback off this? I had a question about AC too, so
Yeah.
just kind of blend them together.
Sure.
I noticed it's missing from 27, 28, 28, 29. Just kind of curious as to why we aren't, and I get we asked for 171 one year, so I was kind of assuming maybe it was to, relieve the next year or so.
Mhm.
But I just noticed it was missing from 2 years, and then in my insanely optimistic point of view, is the 2030, 31 the end of installing AC and, we're all set after that, or it's going to go beyond the 5 years?
Yeah, to fully install air conditioning at every one of our schools, these numbers here that are in the capital improvement plan would not cover that amount. To discuss the plan component of that, there is a plan, and we do have very detailed lists. Mr. Bradbury keeps a very meticulous list of all of our different assets, is what we would refer to them as in the district, whether that be a roofing project, windows, flooring, all those different elements. And what Mr. Bradbury does on a regular basis is updates the condition of those items on the list. So where you see things that say various schools, part of the process that we talked about where the funding would not be received until a year from now, there's times where Mr. Bradbury will say, right now, we need to fund this project, X. And then a year from now, the deterioration of Y becomes greater than X. And that's when Mr. Bradbury would say, we need to shift our focus to this Y project. And the reason why we put it at various schools is because if we call out a specific school at this time, then we would not be eligible for reimbursement from the state by calling out a specific school. So when you're looking at various schools, the funding would be specific to one school, and if the priorities shift based on the need of the schools as they evolve, we would not be eligible for state reimbursement.
So it's also likely, because, I mean, my sense is $1 million doesn't install a tremendous amount of air conditioning. So that could easily get punted to something else if something became more urgent. I guess my point is, I worry that it's just going to get hotter and we're not gonna be able to move fast enough, so what other things can we look at?
So can I jump in and just give a little history to air conditioning in my time here at least? So when I first started here, talking about air conditioning was a non-starter. There was leadership across the way that was never gonna approve any money in the world of air conditioning. And we actually, my first year here, we had like, the first week of school was super hot, and we did some early release days. And whenever that happens, we usually get a wave of letters or emails from families on, you should start after Labor Day, and then air conditioning is discussed. I think in my 8 years here, it's come up twice, so there occasionally, there's a kick up in temperature, so you're right, like what we just experienced, and it's horrendous, the rooms are horrendous. And we actually did a little bit of data collection on the number of hot days in June and the beginning of the very school year, and looked at trend data, and there weren't many over the course of 10 years, let's say. And then finally, we received some ARPA money. So this is going back a few years, and it had to, there was some of the ARPA money had to be designated for HVAC, right, HVAC? And that's when we were able to negotiate with the leadership at the time, across the way, not here, that there would be a match of $1 million. Do I have that number right? We would put $1 million toward AC, and the city would put $1 million toward AC, and we'd start doing little projects around air conditioning. And it was those COVID ARPA funds that finally broke open the dialogue about air conditioning. And that's 2021, 22, right in that area. So we're only a couple of years into this, I'm sorry to say, newer thinking that we should air condition our school buildings. Because it was met up with, well, do you need air conditioning because you're gonna go to year-round schooling? And I may have offered people who are against air conditioning to come and spend their office hours on the second floor of law if they'd like to experience that firsthand. And it is our second floors that are the worst. And I'm not diminishing what a first floor elementary looks like. So it's only actually been in the recent years, Ms. Flowers, that talking about air conditioning our school buildings is even acceptable, and even putting money toward that. So the agreement was, we'll spend a little bit of money each year on air conditioning. And in fact, just as recent, Ms. Doyle, were you on the building committee for Pumpkin Delight?
I joined halfway through.
Okay. We thought we were not getting air conditioning in a renovation at Pumpkin, not till the very end, right, Mr. Bradbury? And it only made it as an alternate with ARPA money. So we were actually gonna renovate Pumpkin with no AC. And that was only closed out a couple meetings ago.
Mhm.
So the notion of air conditioning as supported financially is kind of new for our school system and for the city. And kudos to this board for saying, we want to commit $1 million every year, because, I don't know, Pat, can you talk a little bit about what would it cost to just air condition, let's just, pretending we're not gonna knock it down, Live Oaks?
See, the problem comes in is our whole electrical system isn't set up to add all this extra units to the roof and whatnot. So they're gonna go with a variable flow refrigerant, which you're seeing a lot of these split units you see in your homes now. And that's what we're looking at, to get some of these cassettes in the room. We're gonna try a couple at Orange Ave to see if I can get a small set, see how it works. But we need a design. I need to design for the second floor of law to say, okay, I need to add this to the power, so I have enough power to run the plant, and then I have enough capacity to make a difference in June and July. We just don't wanna, we don't wanna make a mistake, we don't wanna spend money and it doesn't fully air condition, but that's what we're gonna get to. We're gonna lower the temperature, but to pull the full system in that we're actually turning over the air, now you're adding ductwork, you're ripping ceilings out, you know, to make this happen at, say, a second floor at Jonathan Law or West Shore Middle School. And to agree with Dr. Kataya, is I've been here 28 years and I fight at the permanent schools to get the air conditioning to stay in the project. They don't understand what we're up against, and it was just so recently that we
Yeah.
didn't have anything to add. That was usually the first thing that would get
It
cut
is.
out of the project, was the air conditioning. And we put the same units in the building without air conditioning, so it just didn't make sense.
So just to put this into perspective and clarify, when you're talking about the second floor, for instance, of Jonathan Law.
And West Shore,
And
there's
West Shore,
others,
so
yeah.
those are $1 million projects.
The VRF, we think is gonna be around $1 million to get those into. the-
I would say plural, millions.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
gonna be more than $1 million.
So that's definitely a CIP issue.
Our biggest issue is the design. We need a design to say, this is how we're gonna get it done.
Right, okay. So when you're talking mini splits at Orange Ave, for instance,
Mhm.
that's still CIP or that's operating budget?
I'm gonna try and do some of that with a little bit of operation money that I can, because right now I'm putting window units in.
But let's
Okay.
just answer it though fully. If you were to split
Fully?
unit, I don't know if I'm out of my realm right now.
Mhm.
If we were to split unit the entire Orange Avenue school, first of all, could you do that? Without opening up the ceilings?
Well, we're
Split
gonna get
units.
into power,
Yeah.
we're gonna get into power, so that's what we're trying to find, a system that'll handle a couple of classrooms. that
So
we-
right now, you're just piloting.
Instead of replacing a window unit, we're gonna try and put a couple of VRFs and a smaller system in there.
So the split unit, you'd have to assess the viability of that and then the electrical load,
Mhm.
right?
the load, and-
So could you do that complete school? Completely, is this where you're going, on operating budget
No, absolutely not.
for that one school?
No, we couldn't do, we were talking too much money and too much time, you know.
And is that reimbursable?
Steve?
Under HVAC, yeah.
Yes. So we wanna get that.
So it'd have to go through CIP
Right.
and the
okay.
building committee.
So what I'm hearing is that a real solid plan to do something in the interim, we're not getting central air in buildings that we're, you know, ultimately probably gonna be
Knock it down.
potentially knocking down. That would be definitely CIP work
Mhm.
versus what can we do in the interim to,
Right.
or should we, is there something we should do in the interim? So those are two separate things, and I think this is CIP discussion. I would, if the board is agreeable, perhaps direct administration to bring back some kind of feasibility ideas
Yes.
for the,
For the interim.
for the
Is that what-
interim,
okay.
for the interim, at the July meeting, giving them some time to perhaps come up with some alternatives that might help out in the interim, that would be more operating budget expenses.
I
type
do
of
have
thing.
one more comment.
Mhm.
So the same group that doesn't want to put, or has not wanted to put AC in our schools is the same group that's going to be approving the plans for our new schools.
No. No, because the
No,
permanent
no, no.
schools committee turns over every 2 years. So currently, the board, it exists of,
No, you don't need to
Yeah.
commit to all of it. It changes every 2 years with the term.
Okay.
But I
So-
believe that the leadership, the change in leadership has changed the narrative.
Yes.
And
I don't believe we're faced with that problem any longer, Ms. Flowers.
we still have, I mean, the things that we had said during our long-range facilities work was that we have to advocate for what we need. So that is exactly what we're talking about, having to, you know, we need to be putting air conditioning in our new school buildings. And it's not just a cooling thing, it's air quality, I mean, it's a whole host of things that are really important today, so.
May I ask a related
Sure.
question to that? Mr. Bradbury, if you don't mind. You mentioned that what needs to happen is the design.
Correct.
Can you speak a little bit more, but is that like your brain figuring it out? Or are you talking about hiring someone to design?
No, we need a design, we need an engineer to come and tell us that we have enough tonnage to cool the room, that we have enough capacity to keep the whole building cool for both electrically and cooling capacity. And we wanna make sure we're not stifling anything, we have exhaust systems that are running in there now to turn the air over, to heat our air exchanges up, so I don't wanna be putting this air conditioning in it and blowing it out the roof. So there's some engineering involved to make sure that we don't stifle the room for air. We wanna make sure that air keeps turning over, but keeps staying cool and clean at the same time.
Gotcha. So that engineering design is kind of baked into these
Yes.
costs?
We have some
Got it.
money that we can do that for.
Thank you.
Ms. Tedros?
I have one quick comment. As we are, I have one quick comment, and then a question. But as we are talking about what will our plans be in the interim, I would like to have a little bit more detail, not for tonight, but for that July meeting, whenever it happens, of what we consider like unsafe heat. And then, you know, what we consider like words escaping me, but like not good for learning conditions, because I keep hearing this term of like, oh, you know, we haven't had that many hot days, and I would argue that we've actually had a few already. So I think some definitions of term would be very useful, and also what are we doing outside of air conditioning? So if air conditioning is expensive and far in the future, what are the other options that are much more accessible now that we can do in the interim for that July meeting? However, I would like a little bit, to return to the CAB, I would like a little bit more detail about the HVAC upgrades for the 28-29 year for foreign and law, the 28-29 and 29-30, both a phase 1 and phase 2. My question is really, are we kind of maintaining the systems as is? Are we thinking about how we can make them more efficient, effective, etc.? I just like a little bit more detail on that work and the goals of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what the engineering money is for up front. So we want to look at what new technology we can use, how we're gonna actually do it. We have a big chiller plant up there at Foreign High School now, and I have 5 large mechanical spaces that are up in the back of the buildings that feed everything to the school. The problem is there's no access to them, so when I change this mechanical room out, which could be $1 million, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna get all that equipment in there. So we either have to open up the side wall, to rig it all in, so that's what the money is for the design and engineering, to see how we're gonna do it, and how we're gonna do it with the building fully occupied.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the 800,000 that's asked for in the 26-27 year is to figure out how to do
How
phase
and
1
what.
Correct.
and phase 2 of the high school HVAC upgrades. And in that process, are you also going to be looking for and designing for how to make, you know, more efficient and more like, I don't know, environmentally friendly, et cetera?
Absolutely. I mean, that's our goal, is to have the engineers come up with a new technology that are energy efficient and something that we can maintain.
Mhm.
You know, that's the other piece that we have to cross.
Am I correct that one of the bigger issues at Foreign is that there's no windows? So,
The building is set to run on all of the.
right, so that when it goes down, if I'm recalling, the floors get really slippery, for instance? Did we have the time when the floors got slippery?
So- How that works is if the building is in cooling mode, and we're at a certain dew point in the building, and that chiller goes down, what happens is any of that warm, hot August air, and it's usually August, right before school, or, you know, at the end, is when that hits, and when that hot, humid air comes in, that's what condenses on the floor. If I let that sit and acclimate, it wouldn't accumulate on the floor, because everything would cool out, humidity-wise.
Is that one of the reasons why Foreign is so much more expensive than, the chiller plant you keep talking about? This is, I'm guessing, so, I don't know what a chiller plant
So
is,
the chiller
each
plant
room?
is in the boiler room, I'd be happy to take anybody, to go look at it.
I'm good.
but
I'm so excited, let's go.
You get so excited.
I get so excited if anybody wants to look at it. The problem is there's one chiller. I lose $100 card on that, with the way things are now, we could be down for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I got ship things from California, wherever it is. It's hard to know. So what I want the district to do is have some sort of redundancy in that, whether it's a modular chiller, modular air-cooled chiller, so that way, maybe I can't run at 100% on that hot day, but I got enough to get it 80, 75% to at least make it livable. All our eggs are in one basket, I'm trying to get that out.
And the reason that $100 part would take so long is it's not a part that you would just find at like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, right? These are
yeah.
customized parts for a very old chiller that we have.
This is why Mr. Bradbury is so critical to us.
Sorry, I have one more
Yes.
question. For the board members that are on the, what was the?
Permanent school.
Permanent school,
That's not the full name, but that's the.
Permanent School Committee. Can you talk a little bit about how you think of environmental efficiency, or how environmental efficiency is brought into your processes when you are approving contractors, when you are looking at architects, when you are thinking about new buildings?
Well, so part of my other half of my time is environmental. So in that space, for me, there are completely new build designs of materials. So certain materials allow for ceilings to be cooler, for flooring, how that's conditioned, position of where the building's placed on sun. At Quinnipiac, they have a gorgeous new building of materials that are not releasing VOCs and high velocity chemicals, and the materials that you're using within the building and how you're going to implement that. And you have solar panels, you have rainwater catches, you have all of these things. You don't have to have lights on dim days. So what we struggle with is that we don't have an unlimited budget. So it's finding that balance of where can we be environmentally friendly and cost forward in terms of LEED, sustainability, or any of those aspects, while still remembering we have a budget, and that's where, previously, I think that's where the air conditioning would get cut, some of those extras. I mean, we've had this with the law project. Every time we come in, it's like, we started here, and now we're here, and we've hit every single value added condition. And then sometimes it relates to the type of system that we're using that may not be as environmentally friendly, but it may last for 20 years because of certain things. Mr. Bradbury, there's certain air conditioners that sometimes are, like the handlers to split the hot, cold. What have you found with those that we've been able to find?
Is it for longevity?
Yeah.
There is no longevity. I'm doom and gloom. You're lucky if you get 20 years out of a piece of equipment now. It's scary.
Right.
And I'm sorry to be the one that says it, I'm in Sean's office all the time.
Right.
You're not getting, I have equipment up at Form that's original to the building, put in 1973. You're not gonna get that with the next piece of equipment you put in there. You'll be lucky if you get 20 years out of it.
Right.
And if you have good maintenance staff on it and good contractors are taking care of it. You don't have that longevity anymore.
Right, and so I think one of the things we found was that there was a little bit more, like, we could go with the more conventional, which would have lasted longer versus the more environmentally, so there's this cost benefit of like, what can we do long-term with the use of the dollars that we have? That becomes the questions that we're constantly kind of struggling with. And so that leads to changes in design, but sometimes it's designs of, we're not gonna put round windows, we're gonna put basic shaped windows, like, and so that's really what it is, cause we're literally looking at the plans each day and like asking questions about what's going on here, what are the roofing materials, and Tom can talk about his opinions on these things, but that's really what it coming down to.
So,
Thank you.
I just wanna add one thing to that, and I've had this with UI, I've had it with all the energy providers. They can tell you that you're gonna save X amount of energy, you're gonna save all this type of kilowatts, you're gonna save gas, which is great. But now, the repair bucket that I have over here, the prices for equipment or parts for that, I've already gone past the point of savings with some of these pieces. That's the balance that you have to have. They will sell you anything, but you have to be able to maintain it, and you have to be able to get parts for it, and it has to be economical to keep them running. And that's the biggest issue we see. sorry.
Yes, Ms. Flowers?
I have one last question. And I know that for the programming needs future, and this, we'll be talking about this just at later dates. This was just kind of an FYI.
Before we move forward, any funding request, whether it's operational budget or something in CIP, we'll work on engaging the board in a dialogue around it.
Great.
Yes, Ms. Doyle?
So certain things on this list are not state reimbursable, and so we should point that out, like the athletic fields. And that was something that was prioritized earlier over air conditioning at other various times, but,
Can
so,
you say that again?
so, sorry.
It's clear?
Sure, I'm moving fast. So certain projects on here, like improvements to the upgrades to the athletic
Parking lot-
fields.
Parking lot repairs,
Parking lots.
athletic fields,
Right.
typically things that have like general wear and tear, like normal maintenance type upgrades that you would do as just ongoing maintenance of your buildings would not be eligible for that repair.
Because their projects are put into two buckets.
Mhm.
Can you explain the two buckets?
Yeah, eligible for reimbursement or?
Yes.
So, projects are really categorized by two buckets. One of them would be eligible for state reimbursement, the other ones would not be eligible for state reimbursement. And Ms. Doyle kind of, nailed it exactly on there. Really, athletic fields is one of those pieces, and other just regular maintenance type items that you wouldn't, like a window or something like that, windows and things of that nature. Regular things that you would have to replace, things of that nature would be not eligible for the reimbursement.
But there are priority and non-priority projects.
Oh, okay, within eligible for reimbursement, there's two types of projects ineligible for reimbursement. Ineligible, not ineligible. Yes, so if it is eligible for reimbursement, there's two types of projects. One of them's a priority project and one of them's a non-priority project. So non-priority projects would be things like the HVAC repairs, which are eligible for us to go through a process of applying for reimbursement at the beginning of each month. It's a shorter process. Those are the non-priority ones. The priority projects are those larger projects, such as the Tech Ed Wing at Jonathan Law, which are you only apply for reimbursement by that June 30th deadline. So those larger, major renovations, construction projects of a new elementary school, those would hit the priority project, which means you have to get certain elements approved by that June 30th deadline. You have to submit an application to the state. Some of the things that are included in that are the educational specifications, cost estimates, and all the resolutions from the Board of Aldermen stating that there's funding committed to this, that they've turned it over to a building committee. So there's elements that we have to actually hit for the priority projects at a larger level, and that's when you have to meet that June 30th deadline, which is kind of dovetails into our educational specifications for the esports arena, which is very similar to that. That's gonna be a priority project.
Because the priority projects, would you say, typically fall under more educational-based projects?
More educational based, more large scale type improvements, yes.
Ms. Glennon, I have an update.
Yes.
So, to summarize, West Shore Middle School design for $3 million in 28-29. And then the build in 29-30 is $126 million. But in reviewing the timeline, we would need to add East Shore Middle School design in 30-31 for $3 million. And that is architectural and engineering design phase.
So that would be 3 additions to what has been presented to us, as you just stated. Okay, I have those written down. Does everybody understand that? Any questions on that? Yes, Ms. Edmonds?
Just a question about what you just said about how it dovetails into our ed specs for esports, not to get ahead of ourselves, but am I supposed to be seeing the esports arena anywhere on here, or is that prior CIP?
That was already secured, so, in previous funding. So what we typically do is list the prior year funding in that
Very
gray
top.
section up at the top. That funding actually occurred 2 years ago, so that would have been in the 24-25 funding.
Okay, so but I'm not seeing it there, right?
Right.
No,
Because it's
yeah.
the year before.
We've already,
Okay.
yeah, we've already
Got it.
secured the
I just wanted to
funding.
make sure that I
Yep.
wasn't missing something.
We've already secured the funding for the architectural and construction pieces of that.
Can I just add, sorry, one more thing? So on here in 2026, 2027, there's technical education, facility, and equipment improvements for 4 and high. So we have already have an architecture for that project and have already started the ed specs and looking at what improvements need to be made. But there's not enough money currently allocated to continue that project. So we're already kind of done the design phase and started.
Because the law is going first.
Law is going first, because the original allocation of money was to split, and then when it came back, there was just not enough money to complete the project, because costs have escalated so much.
Ms. Edmonds?
I'm sure some of the escalation of costs has been unforeseen, but I'm hearing over and over again that we are under budgeting for what the true costs are. Do you envision that to continue to be a problem moving forward?
So are you specifically, are you talking in generality or to the 4 and high project there?
Just in generality?
Yeah, I think, the tricky part of this is trying to hit somewhat of a moving target because of the process of when we would actually receive those funds. So at best, we're looking at next year before we even receive those funds. So it's a science and also an art of trying to estimate where that actual bucket's gonna land. And I think part of that is through talking with contractors, talking with architects, trying to get an understanding for what today's current cost of something of that magnitude would be, and then trying to discuss what a cost estimate escalator would be. So the architects, like for instance, when we were looking specifically at this 4 in high school one, this is an updated number that the architects who were designing the project gave us as a result of what they anticipate escalating costs would be for this project. Now keep in mind that it also would be not necessarily started or finished of construction that following year. So now they're cost escalating those out multiple years. So it gets tricky because there's no exact formula for what cost escalation could actually entail. But I think, just back to Mr. Bradbury's point, it is concerning the way things have been rising just in recent times. Mr. Bradbury was having a conversation with me today about just a window that he's buying for personal reasons, and the cost of what that window is compared to what it would have been a couple of years ago is significant. It seemed like it was almost like a triple, you said? So, and that's just one window. So I think to your point, yes, things are escalating and it's hard to kind of get a pulse on what that's gonna be. And that comes into the point of Ms. Doyle's response from earlier when she talked about, we have this budget, it gets approved, we do the best that we can to estimate what those costs are, and once we have an architect on board who actually dives into those specific details, then we start taking a look at, okay, here's the funding we have, what are our priorities for this project, how do we best ensure that these dollars are matching our goals as a Board of Education, but also providing our students with the best experience necessary. And that's where that value engineering piece comes in, and we start taking a look at what can be removed from that project without sacrificing the output. So it's kind of that ongoing process that we've just dive into each cycle.
But there's also another element that makes the estimating tricky the further away it is from today. So a great example of that will be the 4 in high school pool. So that might have been on the CIP in earlier years, further down on the list. But until we can get an architect and engineer to spec it out, our pool estimate is almost a guess. So this number of 5 million is much more accurate than it might have been 2 or 3 years ago, when we knew the pool's failing, we gotta put it on the CIP, the pool's failing. And that's when bringing in the architect and the engineers at 300,000 gives us a much more solid number. So that could also cause a difference in number. In that, as educators and as great as Mr. Bradbury is, he's still not an engineer, still not an architect. So that could also cause a variation in number a couple of years down the road.
Similar to our HVAC ones for this actual budget cycle here, of trying to just understand what those are, and once we get those numbers, that could adjust those future phase 1, phase 2 HVAC needs.
I'll give you a concrete example. We had a playground, it was $100,000 when it started. By the time we actually bought it, it was $130,000. Same exact playground, $30,000 for nothing extra or added or value added over the course of the contract, and that occurred within a few months of there. So that was, or a pumpkin in the acoustical system. I think almost similar one done at West Shore. When West Shore was done was under $10,000, and now it's $25,000. So each of these demonstrates the escalating costs that are occurring, and they're occurring at the moment you're doing them frequently.
So something you said kind of caught my attention about the buildings committee trying to stick to the priorities of the board and like kind of the output that we asked for. And I don't know if this is a question so much as a comment, but it makes me feel strongly that as we submit the CIPs, if there are things that this board feels strongly about as priorities that aren't necessarily, I mean, I see in the next section with the ed specs that like the district priorities are in there, I see all that, and I see that there's plenty of explanation. But as you were talking about, you know, let's say AC is the first thing to go because, you know, maybe that doesn't seem like one of the outputs that is the most important. It makes me feel like with each project we should, if there are things that we feel super strongly about, that this board should be weighing in on what those are. And I think as we were in the long-range facility plan project, it did come up with some parents asking what the priorities are, and I think like big priorities, yes, those exist, but smaller priorities like environmentally friendly versus larger versus, I don't know, whatever the other options are once you are actually talking to the architect and figuring out cost. It feels like once we turn it over to that building committee, then we no longer have the ability to weigh in on our priorities, right? This would be the time to do that. Am I misunderstanding how that works? It doesn't come back to the board, right?
But we wouldn't be the conveyors of that, though. I think the board reps would be the conveyors of those priorities and your voice at
Like
that table.
throughout the process, you're saying?
Yeah, so I think we could feel the same way too. As soon as this project gets turned over to building committee, our voice gets smaller.
But I would like Mr. Brennan to speak about, because the esports I think are a really great example
Yeah.
of the board working with the administration to prioritize what the goals of the administration are. Is
Yeah.
because that was a collaborative effort, and so if you can speak to that, I think it would be helpful for everyone on the board to hear that process.
Absolutely. Yes, perfect, I can definitely talk about that. So when we were talking about the esports arena, just as one small finite example, there's a number of voices that we wanted to make sure were represented throughout the process as we were developing and building these. It was a very in-depth process. It was a collaboration between our building committee, the architects who we've selected through the building committee, central office administration, instructional supervisors, building principals, and the teachers, right? We looked at a couple different components of that. We looked at the in-day, like during the school day instruction part, like who are typical teachers that might be instructing in this space, what is their input to that? And then also some of the after-school coaches that are running the esports arena after school, what is their input? We did meetings at the school, we did walkthroughs, we had virtual meetings, we We talked about different elements of what this design should look like, and through that collaboration piece, we helped construct a vision for what this space should look like, which is reflected in these educational specifications. So it's not just one person that's determining what this space should look like. It's really a collective vision of everything that we've talked about. And specifically to that esports arena, one of the different pieces that we were really focusing on, and we made it abundantly clear at the beginning of the process to our partners who were the architects of the project, is that we're looking for flexibility within that space. And the reason for that is because we want to be able to gain the maximum capacity out of that space, whether it be for instruction during the day or whether it be for something after school. And that's a vision that was held as we went throughout that development process. And to Ms. Doyle's point, there was concept updates at the permanent school facilities building committee. It's a very long name. On a regular basis, as here's the progress that we're making, as like almost like a check-in point, and then we get to that level of, okay, here's our next step in the process of approving the educational specifications, which come with a great deal of work to building those pieces out. And I could talk a little bit more about the process when we get to that, about the elements that need to go into an actual education specification. But yes, to her point, it's not just one single voice. We try to think about who are the people who are going to be best represented by living in this space on a day-to-day basis to help make sure that their voice is heard.
I appreciate that it feels like equity was centered in that process and inviting all those stakeholders to participate. I guess what I was maybe thinking is, we do have 2 Board of Ed representatives on that committee, but those Board of Ed representatives are not consulting the board for opinions throughout the process. And maybe opinions is the wrong word, as much as like, if things are getting cut, now we need to decide X. No one is coming back to the board at any point to bring up those priority discussions, so that may not be a discussion for tonight, but I guess my comment there was just that it would be nice to have either the ability to discuss some of those priorities up front and have them written down as part of this plan, or potentially have our board liaisons be bringing back that information to the board for a discussion. Otherwise, it is the 2 members of the board who are liaisons who are weighing in, not the full board, if that makes sense. So I don't know why I'm looking at you, sorry, Mr. Brennan, it's not at you, it's not really at anyone, it's just, that's,
I think at the CIP level, it's supposed to be very, very high level information. So I think at this level, what you're talking about is probably a little bit more in the weeds than it should be for this. Because again, this is just very, it's like a snapshot, a blueprint of what are the needs over the next 5 years of the district. It doesn't really get into that detail. But I think what you're talking about is another conversation for a different time.
I mean, I agree though, because I think it is, I mean, it's worrisome. It's like, I mean, I'm happy to hear that teachers and principals will be engaged in this process because they're the ones who are gonna be in the space. I guess I don't trust that the right decisions will be made.
So.
And that worries me with an $83 million school.
Well, I think this is there are different scales here. So like the law project specifically, like the value added, meant a roof line was taken off. Like there were certain like design elements, but not the physical of like, we're gonna make sure the windows have the correct screen, have it. Like the rooms are appropriate for meet the needs of the program, all of those things. But there are certain costs that are nice to have versus implementing that. But I think from a different thing is, Milford has not built a brand new school in 50 years. So this is an ongoing process that will require input at many different levels. And I think that's really, there has been from when we hired the architect and for company to do the last part, there were parameters that were set out of what was important and what we came to from the earlier discussions, which included air conditioning across the board, included environmental design, included appropriate spaces for children to be in, appropriate spaces for teachers. Like, those values have already kind of started to fruition. We just haven't set it in that level yet. So I think there are more discussions to be had.
Ms. Edmonds?
So I hear you on the high level nature of the CIP. Let me make sure I'm understanding though. So the Board of Education a few years ago put an esports arena and 2 esports arenas into the CIP with a similar amount of detail. And then the next time the board as a whole sees anything about that project, anything to weigh in on, is after the architect has already put together ed specs. So I think that there is, to me, I'm looking at that, I know this is our next conversation, I'm looking at the ed specs, are not high level, and things have been prioritized, but with the architect. So where
It
in
came
that
from the
conversation?
group of people that, I mean, technically, once the project is turned over to the permanent schools committee, it's their project.
Right, that's my point.
And that's the process, I mean, that's the state regulation, that's
Right.
the way it is.
So, but it gets turned over to them from the CIP.
Correct,
Not until the money is allocated from the state.
right, the money has to be
So
allocated.
those priorities would then need to be in the CIP is what I'm arguing here. I'm not sure that there's anything, I don't know what we could accomplish tonight of adding
It's the
anything here, but, I do think that it's worth having this conversation to make the process more, both transparent and equitable within this board moving forward, for sure.
Yes, Ms. Brown?
I just want to clarify, so once it moves past us and it's out of our hands, that's when teachers who are in committees helping to make decisions?
We like to engage various
And
stakeholders.
administrators, Yeah. I think, and I know it's hard because out of our hands it's a lot of money, but for me, I think the most important voices are really like the people who are in the school, those who are in the trenches, because they're the ones that, and then when they're designing the space where the programming is, I think it's really important, their voice, I think, is the transparency that we're hearing from, because they're gonna have a lot to say, down to even how our teacher's bathroom goes, and they really will. Teachers are very vocal about this stuff. So, as long as they have a huge say into what is going on in the building, I'm very comfortable that I don't have as much of a say, because I'm not in the building.
Are there teachers on the permanent schools committee?
No.
No.
Depends.
Well, there
is.
was a teacher who's not there as a
role,
teacher.
not as that role.
There's 2 members of the Board of Education, 2 members of the Board of Aldermen, 2 members at large, 3 members at large, 3 members at large.
Are they
Also
appointed?
appointed by by the chair of the Board of Aldermen.
Every 2 years?
Yes, right, it's with the election cycle.
Okay, so those 3 are new this year.
No, I don't think anybody was new. Was anybody new this year? He tends to, I mean, the same people have been appointed.
Tom's new this year,
Tom's new this year,
as well as Jen Federico
as an alderman.
as an alderman. Andy Fowler's on it as an alderman. He was on it as a Board of Education member. Matt Woods has been the chair for a very long time.
And then Bob Nuno is a teacher, but he's on as a member at large.
Right.
And there's a retired teacher who's a member at large as well.
To reflect,
There is
So
a
the-
requirement
the-
that one
when-
member has to have construction experience too.
Bringing in
out of-
staff.
Out of the group.
Bringing in staff is like ancillary. It's done as a, I don't want to say courtesy, it's not really, but it's done as a matter of
Good practice.
good practice to have them weigh in on the design and things that would be necessary for certain spaces.
This ultimately is gonna be the most amount of money the Board of Ed has asked for in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be met with some resistance.
Right, and we do plan to have conversation with the various boards that will be in having to make those decisions, yeah.
I think, Jen's kind of bouncing up everything that's been mentioned about this. I agree with Ms. Brown that, you know, the voice of the teachers and the stakeholders is very valuable. But I also feel that two members of the board, our board, are representing the board on that committee. They're not on there as individuals, I assume they're on there as Board of Ed members.
Mm-hmm.
And so to reflect what Ms. Edmonds' point was, we get the liaison reports, like Ms. Doyle comes in and gives us the liaison report every month as to what's going on, but it never, at least from what I've seen, it never leads to discussion. It's just, here's what's going on. And I think us setting commitments ahead of time will be valuable, but I also think we're not gonna think of every single thing that is critical just right now off the cuff. And if we have the opportunity to have the board members that are representing the board come back and have a discussion to then go back and represent the board, we would need to have full-on discussions, just not just reports on that. And I know, again, kind of in the weeds based on the conversation we're supposed to be having tonight, but I think this is something that we really do need to lean into in the future, especially with the numbers that we're talking about. So
I think this is something that we'll need to take some time to consider. That would be actual agenda items too, because a liaison report is just a report. So I think to get back to the CIP discussion and taking action on that, how things move forward, that would be a different practice, that we'll have to put some thought to that.
And just to kind of, again, circle back to what point Ms. Simmons had mentioned, the narrative that you provided for us with the CIP, is that like a package deal when this moves on to the mayor's office, or are they just kind of getting the?
Yes, there's a different format that it's called the mayor's forms for how these projects are written, but yes, it's not in this format, but it's the same information transferred to a different format.
Do you provide any types of like commitments or expectations when you're doing this, or just like, we need a new pool and we're hiring someone to like
It
design
would be very similar to the information that is being approved by the Board of Education. This is
Okay.
what's approved by the board, so this is what would move forward to them.
So just bringing it back to it being relevant to the CIP, we wouldn't attach commitments to this tonight, right now, regardless.
No, because the primary function of this is attainment of funding. This is that is the number one and almost only function. We have to attain the money. And it can't go across the way for consideration on this board says this is a priority project and we're asking for funding. So that is,
Yeah.
while all, the rest of the dialogue is very critical, we just need you guys to give a green light on, these are the priorities we should go across the street and talk about.
And to Mr. Scobie's point, at those successive board meetings, at the Board of Finance meeting, at the Board of Aldermen meeting, that's where we would discuss the project, talk about why it's important, bring forward the vision of the actual project, and answer any questions that board may have about it.
But I don't think that board's gonna get into, what are your parking lot needs? They're just gonna have very high level questions about, why do you need a new pool?
Okay.
So I know that, like what Mr. Scobie just said, I know, Sue, that we would like, this would be conversation in the future, but I do just wanna say that, like, these schools is the biggest thing Milford is going to see in decades. So if policy meeting changes need to shift a bit, I think it's worth it. It's not forever. But this is literally, Milford has not done this since 1973. So I think that it's just really important that this is done right. So,
Just to have dialogue around
Yeah.
whatever's happening, I don't know.
I think, Ms. Flowers, that could be appropriate, post-funding, right?
I know,
So-
not today, I'm just saying, like, I just wanted to say that, because I think.
So around February next year, we'll know if we'll have the blessing of at least architectural fees.
Yep.
And so I think that could potentially, if the board so chooses, create, it would have to be a standing meeting agenda item, so that the public knows you're discussing it.
Okay, so do we have other questions or comments on the CIP itself before we take action on it? It would be to adopt as amended.
All right, sorry, I got, just thinking. I make a motion that the Board of Education approve the 2027-2023 capital improvement plan as amended by the board and forward the plan to the mayor for consideration and funding.
I don't think this is right. 2020,
2026 to 2027?
2027 to 2031.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I think it's 2023.
No,
Oh,
this is 2027.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Actually, I'm sorry, I have one more comment. I was thinking about it while you were mentioning this. The CIP, does it get accepted as a whole? Like, this package, it's all or nothing?
No.
So is there any harm in adding AC to 27, 28, 28, 29? Sticking it in there, and if it doesn't get approved, it doesn't get approved, but we at least tried? Because, I mean, we just casually added another 132 million to this. I don't know if another 2 million is, I mean, in my mind, I'm not gonna pretend like $2 million is nothing, but I don't, why wouldn't we try?
But, so would we want to do that, knowing that we're, like,
I mean, it's
Knowing we're gonna
in
knock-
existence in the 30 and 31.
Specifically for certain schools, right?
For law and foreign,
Is that law and foreign?
that aren't gonna be.
The second
it
floor,
says
not foreign,
various
second
schools.
floors?
Yeah, it just says various.
Well, it says various because of what he explained, that we wouldn't actually identify the schools right now, because if you
Oh, yeah,
identify.
I know we
them-
can't say the schools, but I
Right.
mean, there's a lot of schools in our long-range plan that
Well,
are
but
down
we're
the
talking
road.
about we're asking them to come back with some temporary measures for that in July. That's what we.
Sure, yeah, and temporary measures to me means fans, which is great, but, like, I just, why wouldn't we add AC? Like, why wouldn't we just take a stab at it? I don't,
To which year were you saying?
27, 28, 28, 29.
there's no
There's no-
negative impact to doing that?
Yeah.
I mean, we could move up miscellaneous improvements, HVAC, ventilation, boilers, masonry.
Well,
I
I think
mean, I
those are
don't-
different from AC, I think.
Well, it says HVAC in it.
No, that's
Just
different.
because it says
That's-
HVAC doesn't mean that it's, it could be any part of that. It could be boilers, it could be piping, it fits anything that relates
What
to.
I'm saying is having various schools.
So for 27, 28, and 28, 29, Mr. Scobie, you wanna say install air conditioning various schools?
I mean, that's my pitch, yes.
Yeah, or, there's no negative consequence to that.
Okay, so what are we doing? For 2027, 2028? Is what, do we have to make a motion to amend
No.
again?
Well,
You've already read the
just
motion?
include that in the, what?
Have you already read the motion?
Yes.
She read the motion and it was seconded.
So you would have to go through an amendment.
So,
So-
Mr. Scobie is making an amendment to the amended CIP to add,
Various
various
schools
schools AC,
install air conditioning, $1 million each, correct, Mr. Scobie? For 27, 28, and 28, 29?
yes, that's what I remember. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Any discussion on that amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that amendment carries unanimously. So now we go back to the original motion, which is to approve as amended, which would include the three items we talked about previously and what Mr. Scobie just brought up. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries unanimously. So what we're getting is the CIP that has the three things that we talked about initially, and then adding the various schools' installation of AC at $1 million each for 27, 28, 28, 29.
There are 5 amendments altogether.
Okay.
We'll create a new copy of this and send it to you. Can we move to the next item?
Yes.
So can we handle both of those together?
We can handle them, I think we can handle
As a
them in
discussion, but you'd have to,
together, but we
vote
have two
separately.
separate motions.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Brennan?
Thank you, Dr. Katai. So in your package, you will see that we have the 2 educational specifications for the projects at Jonathan Law Esports Arena and Foreign High School Esports Arena. As mentioned earlier, this project had various levels of input from educators to administrators, central office staff. Our bids department also played an active role in this, facilities, number of hands that helped with the architect to design this project. The educational specifications have a very prescribed format that the state likes to see in order to be eligible to apply for reimbursement, and you will see that on page 2 of each one of those documents, and it outlines what those sections are. Some of them talk about the rationale, school mission, which we've included our we've included our local public schools mission statement, vision statement, the commitments that were approved by the Board of Education, and also the school goals. There's some of that grounding foundation to help us drive some of the thinking behind this work. And then each one of these, we also talked about some of the long-range educational planning that this board has been engaging in for a number of years. Going through each piece, we also need to outline the projected student enrollment. So they take a look at some of our historical enrollment with also some of our projected enrollment, which is an element that we were able to provide in this section. And then there's learning and educational activities that we want to happen within these spaces. And one of those elements, as we discussed before, that was really prevalent throughout the thinking of this space was that element of flexibility so that we're able to utilize the space to maximize the actual output of it. Mr. Altieri was also very helpful in this process to help us think about some of those educational pieces and guide some of that thinking on what the in-day part of the school programming would look like. Detailed specs of those spaces to kind of outline what the actual space component would be is in that next section. And then we start getting into some of the architectural components that we really rely heavily on from our architects, our partners at Fryer Architecture, with the building systems, interior building environment, what those actual spaces would need in order to be functioning and brought up to code. And then from there, there's a couple other additional sections which aren't relevant for this specific project, like site development. This is not a project where we would need to engage in acquiring a site from the city or any one of those pieces. So you will find that these 2 ed specs are very similar in nature. Of course, the 2 spaces that were designed and determined based on the walkthroughs that we conducted are slightly different spaces. So there might be some slight modifications in what elements of the ed spec say, but as a whole, we kept it under the same lens, and we looked at a parity between the 2 schools and the 2 spaces as an output. And one of the guiding things that we discussed with Fryer Architecture is that we want to make sure that there are equal spaces in terms of that parity. One more element of this is that we are looking to apply for reimbursement by that June 30th deadline, and the ed specs approval by the Board of Education is a part of that process. There are a few other components that are elements of that process, which are some resolutions that come from the Board of Aldermen in order to say that there is funding for this project and that they've turned it over to the building committee and that there is the establishment of a building committee, so there's some resolutions that we need to provide to them. And then Fryer Architecture will also provide us with some cost estimates based on these ed specifications that would be included within that application to the state. The project itself, we would be looking to break ground next summer, not this upcoming summer, but the following summer is when we would be hopeful that this project would be breaking ground per se in that classroom. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about them.
Ms. Edmonds?
Do you know yet where in the schools they will be?
Yes.
Can you share?
Yes, so at Jonathan Law, there's a space in the media center, so when you walk into the media center, there's some classrooms and smaller spaces that we're looking to capitalize on and turn into a larger space, but also have some breakout areas for this space. So in short, at Jonathan Law, it's in some rooms that are inside the media center that are like separated inside the media center. And then at Foreign High School, it's in the wing that exists within the tech ed wing. So if you walk into that third level front entrance, it's a wing that's off to the right and down the hallway. Classroom 364, I believe it is. It's in that wing there.
Can you share what floor those are on?
Yeah, the Foreign High School one is on the third floor, which is really that main entrance floor. And then at Jonathan Law, it's on the first floor.
Okay. Something that I was thinking about when Dr. Pataya, you were talking about the heat as you go up in floors.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed in these ed specs is that this plan is going to require 24/7, 365 cooling, and like,
I think for the component that has some of those like operating systems, like almost like the room
Network.
that's the networking room area.
Yep.
Which is already cooled.
Yeah,
It's already cooled at Jonathan Law, and Foreign's already cooled.
yeah. And if there's an additional networking room, which is in the spaces, if you look at the IDF. Yeah, IDF room, that 90 square foot, that's where that, it's a smaller space where you have some of those network wirings and all those pieces. So that's something that we were looking at, needing that cooling system in order to offset some of the heat that's generated from a networking system like that.
Has any cost analysis been done on what impact this will have on electricity, utilities?
So I think the biggest impact on that would be the HVAC piece of it. I mean, the current spaces right now have electrical use, lighting, outlets for different elements. In terms of trying to break down the specific cost that one program within a classroom is costing,
We're already running the program.
yeah,
They're already occupying space.
yeah.
The IDFs already have mini split in them, so we're already kind of taking care of that already. It'll be a large impact.
Other questions? So we need two separate motions.
I'm sorry, I do have a couple more. I was waiting to see if anyone else did. How many students currently are in the esports program?
After school.
After school?
Mr. Giancarlo, do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. It was in the athletic report.
Yeah.
It's a winning team,
Yeah, I remember, third place, right, in the state?
top 4, and for 2 years in a row now?
Yeah.
That's great.
We'll get that information for you, Ms. Edmonds.
I feel like we had a discussion before about specifically kind of that question. It's being called esports, but it's being utilized all day, like the spaces.
We're planning to use it
technically used all day.
instructionally, to branch off on marketing pieces, pre-engineering, et cetera, right? Am I right about that?
Yes.
Yeah, so as Mr. Brennan said, we took a long pause and talked with staff, teachers, to try to figure out the responsivity and the versatility of the space during the day. So thinking about some of our current courses, 3D design, architectural design, engineering design, courses that we could run in that space, utilize the hardware and the computers during the day, but also think about the versatility of the space in terms of small group breakout, opportunities for more collaborative planning, inquiry design. The way the space looks has the ability to be able to run some different classes. A little bit different at Jonathan Law. Jonathan Law, we also had talked about, possibly some courses in music, maybe as part of that as well. So we did talk with several teachers as we thought about the layout and the use of the space during the day. And obviously you also see there's a conference room space in there, as well as like a small team broadcasting room. So we talked about ways to leverage the school news, or if there was a course that required podcast or some type of digital design, being able to schedule that space out during the day. And then the conference room doing small seminar style classes. So we looked at, Mr. Brennan and I, some configurations of the layout of the different spaces within there, so you'd have multiple means of ingress to be able to use different parts of the space throughout the school day.
Just to answer your questions, Ms. Edmonds. The esports, the report that was given this past fall is on the 24-25 athletic report, so it was for last year's numbers, which was our first year of putting out the interest for this, and that was 30 students that we had combined between the two schools for the fall season.
Is that multiple teams then?
Yeah.
Okay. Cause I know that there are limits, right, on how many kids are on a team.
They compete in different games.
Yeah.
I used to be a Rocket League coach, so I can speak from personal experience, I understand.
And the startup costs, included in that first year, the cost per student is par with, sports like wrestling and soccer. We anticipate when we create this report for October again for the board, that number likely per student will be down because, we won't have those initial startup costs. So it's not, it's a sport that is in line with what we're spending on other sports.
So you say the number again of kids that are on the team last
30.
year? 30. And how many kids are anticipated to use the spaces during the day, if you had to guess? Just, I know it's a shoot.
It's a full load.
Yeah.
Full classroom load is what we would schedule.
The number of kids that take architecture, number of kids that take 3D.
We'd schedule it out as a period, instructional space each period of the day.
Okay. I just wanna say that I love the fact that we're creating a modern tech space. I love the fact that we're supporting these new career pathways or new possibilities for classes, and the building is not dictating what we can or can't teach. One of my questions though is, as I read through the ed specs, it felt a lot more like we're building an arena. Like some of the things that popped out at me were spectator viewing areas, tournament layouts, coaching rooms, which coaching rooms I could totally see how that would be multi-purpose. RGB lighting, broadcasting infrastructure, and I'm sure that you and the committee of stakeholders has thought through how to make use of those things, but I am wondering if I know that this project has already been approved by a prior board, and so it's not a question of whether or not it should or shouldn't happen. My question is more about if throughout the entire school day we have full classrooms of students using it for purposes other than esports. Does your team feel like these ed specs represent that prioritization correctly? And maybe it depends who's prioritizing, right? But I would think that if we're talking about things like CAD and engineering and STEM, and so I know there's a list of some of the other courses in here, architecture, design. You just said some other cool ones that I didn't even read in here. I just don't, there seems to be a slight disconnect between, like when we talk about RGB lighting and some of the fancier equipment that is designed for an arena versus what you would actually want or need in an instructional space, since that will be the majority of students.
Sure, yes, so actually the lens that we had on this and some of the thinking that we had with our internal stakeholders and with the architects who were helping design this was that we really wanted to emphasize the in-day instruction component of that. If there's certain areas that aren't calling that out enough, like for instance, just right when we were trying to intro it, there's an area that right at the beginning, it talks about it's engineered to host a rotation of core and elective courses that feed directly into career and technical education and specialized career pathways, including digital media broadcasting, computer-aided design, and engineering design. Immediately following dismissal, the space seamlessly transitions into a high-tech esports arena. So one of the things that we're really trying to balance here is the fact that yes, it would be an esports arena during the after-school hours, but during the in-day portion of this is really where we're emphasizing on some of those different career pathways that we've kind of taken a look at in previous years. And I think when you look at some of these areas that, like the one that you mentioned with the broadcasting booth, that's not in isolation to the esports arena. So there are like digital marketing and digital broadcasting and different classes that we're looking at envisioning for during the day that those spaces would be utilized. So what we really did is look at each one of those spaces, and although there are breakout spaces within the esports arena, we looked at how could those spaces be utilized during in-day instruction. And some of the thinking that would even emphasize that is multiple entrances to these different areas. So for instance, if you're looking at the esports arena in isolation, there's an entrance here, and some of these breakout classrooms have an entrance on the other side as well as a connection that goes to the esports arena, so that if there is a class that's occurring in the, let's call it the esports arena section during the day, other classrooms during the day can also go to these broadcasting areas and stuff. So really the emphasis and the theme that we kept going back to was really the in-day component of this, and the flexibility nature of this allows us to adapt as we grow as a school system over time, and that's something that we really wanted to emphasize. And we didn't want a set stage that was fixed to the ground in any one location, right? So when you look at the space that's spectator seating, that wouldn't be something that you walk in and see stadium seating that's fixed there throughout the day. That would be something that we're looking at. How do we make sure that it's in there, there's an area for the after-school spectating to occur, but that now gets collapsed or moved out when the in-person instruction's happening during the day.
I want to add, and when we first pitched this idea to the Board of Ed at the time and town bodies, we made it a pretty significant point that we want to treat these athletes like any other athlete. So we would no more say in football, we're not going to put up really cool lighting because during the day it's just a bunch of sophomores using it to play. We wanted to treat the esports athlete with the same respect that we treat football and soccer and tennis and softball. Therefore, that lighting is essential to this project. And I would argue that the competitive use of this space is equally as important as the in-day use. Because these are serious athletes. It's not a club, it's a CIAC sanctioned sport. We have students going for scholarships, making careers out of it. So the reason why there's a prominent presence in the ed specs for that is with intention. Actually, the first reason we went for the arena was because of the athletic nature of it. What came out of that is, through our own learning, wow, there's like a whole industry with esports. And we can create pathways for not just the athlete, but for the coach and for broadcasting, etc. So I would not in any way want to diminish the athletic aspect of this ed spec. I think for us, I won't speak for these guys, but I really honor and respect our esports athletes and want to give them the best competitive space possible. And that was one of my primary pitch for those of you who were on the board at the time. So I'm grateful that we have taken on with priority the in-day use, but I'm also grateful to the board who approved this to say, yeah, we think we want to recognize that athlete too. So I think that's why it's so prominent, because both of those are important to us.
Can I just make so one thing with this project specifically that was important was when we interviewed architects, there was one architect that very clearly said, we cannot achieve your vision. And that was like, because I was very clear, was this room needs to be used during the day and it needs to be used for this situation. It can't be just this use. And so part of that is we really found a great partner with Fryer who's very interested in doing that. So that comes back to this RFP process in the future of choosing an architect who can really work with the vision and wants to go through each of the processes to achieve what the goal is. Because that's not true of every architect, and I think that was really part of the vision is to be used from there. And that was the only thing I had, sorry.
Any other questions?
Oh, I remember what it was.
Okay.
We are the first in the state to do this. We haven't been able to find any partners to really go and get information.
At the high school level.
At the high school level,
Yeah.
to really see what it is, so we are the first one.
But we're not the only high school that has a competitive team.
Right.
And other towns are asking, what are you guys doing? We need to do the same. So it's becoming highly competitive and recognized sport. And at the time, when we had the board dialogue and went to the Board of Aldermen to discuss this, we even talked about possibly turning this into a revenue-making opportunity in that we could host tournaments, because there isn't a good tournament space in the New England area. And I forget the agency we partnered with, Steve, that talked about Milford being a perfect spot for tournament hosting because we're right off of 95, close to New York City, close to Boston, so it could potentially be a regional attraction. So it could offset some of these costs, it could be revenue generating. In fact, I think I even said we can go from the highlight capital of Connecticut to the sports capital of Connecticut.
I don't know why.
Did I get that right? Highlight?
All this now.
Don't ask what highlight is.
I didn't get that one. Had to be here. Yeah, this is my last thing, I promise. You mentioned like cool lighting and you'd give the same priority to esports that you would to the football team. I'm just wondering, like I'm reading this one bullet point, multiple wall-mounted and mobile high refresh rate displays dispersed strategically throughout the arena footprint for spectator viewing, studio-grade microphones and multi-channel speakers, wall-mounted digital display panels mimicking a master television control room environment. Again, all so cool, so cool. But, do we have, video displays in our for any of our other sports? Do we have video displays for football or basketball?
Well, I don't know that video display serves the same function in football as it does gaming. Because
I'm sorry, go ahead.
gaming, in the tournaments I've attended, I'm not always able to, you've been a coach, right? So audiences can't see what you're doing on your screen, so the play has to be displayed.
Mhm.
So video display, to me, is a little different than what we would offer our football team. So our football team has the house that they all go to at halftime, what's that called?
Field house?
Thank you. The field house. It's getting late. So that's, I think, like a $1.5 million house we're not spending 1.5 on building a house for esports. So to me, I think it's not an equal video display for everybody. It's giving each team what they need to perform at their best and allowing participant and audience engagement. So what we would give the softball team in dugouts, we would give the football team in a field house. We would give, tennis doesn't have either one of those, I don't think.
But
Track and field.
esports is prioritized just as a new, because it's multipurpose. Like over some of those other sports that may not have the cool things yet.
Oh, no, our athletic program has received a lot of investment. I mean,
itself is new.
Yes.
It's, yeah,
Let's go back to the comment that we've heard Megan say frequently. We've had, in certain administrations, have prioritized our athletic fields over air
Yeah.
conditioning in schools.
we have bougie,
gorgeous-
we have bougie
Gorgeous-
programming
Gorgeous
in
athletic.
athletics.
Yeah,
In
when
comparison to
other
anyone
schools
in the
come
Pretty
to our
bougie.
fields, they
Turf
make
field,
comments
right.
about how beautiful the facilities are.
Walk through the new entryway of the foreign football field,
It's beautiful.
that's pretty bougie.
I personally am looking forward to seeing the esports space when it's done. I'd love to be invited to a game.
There'll be a ribbon cutting.
I went
And,
to the softball
yeah.
game yesterday at West Shore, at West Haven, and that is where they hold all the state tournaments. Our field is much more gorgeous, either foreign or law teams.
So when we first started talking about esports, and maybe not everybody has the benefit of knowing the history, we really went after this because the students asked us for it. Students wanted esports. And I'm a convert, by the way. I was a no way superintendent walking into the pitch. And we did kind of like a career thing with affinity esports, with law and foreign, and it was in the same day. By the end of those 2 sessions, I was sold. I saw students who lived on the fringe of life at school find a place of belonging with kids you wouldn't think that they would connect with. So since that moment, so I've had that like emotional experience with kids. I've been a huge advocate for ensuring that our athletes who participate in esports feel like they are treated equally, and that we're gonna give them the resources and the facility and the respect like we do star football players. So I'm a staunch advocate for giving them anything we would dream of for any other athlete, so.
Jerseys. You know, just this
Yeah, we
one.
just invested in uniforms and spirit wear, and just like we have a bougie foreign entryway, and there's a beautiful a new baseball field at Law,
That's a
right?
beautiful field at Law.
Like, we didn't just do that halfway, we went all in on those sports. So I want us to go all in on esports. That's why this ed spec is before you.
And I think the board, prior board, agreed with that in terms of, we actually moved it up on the CIP.
Oh,
Do you
yes,
remember?
I think
It was
Miss
like,
Wolf Boynton was here, and
why are
like,
we-
oh my
why are we
God.
waiting to do
Let's
this
do it.
if it's so,
I do remember that.
Yeah.
if it's so popular and if it's that important?
Yeah.
So we moved it up,
Good point.
so. Are we ready?
Yes,
We have to do 2 separate motions.
got it. I make a motion that the local Board of Education approve the educational specifications for the esports arena at Jonathan Law High School and authorize the superintendent to begin the application process to the Commissioner of the Department of Administrative Services for reimbursement of eligible costs of this project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
Just one thing, final comment, I do believe strongly in this modern tech space. I also know the benefits of esports, been on the other side of it. That being said, having been through 10 meetings on the long-range facility plan, seeing the critical needs in our district, I don't see this representing a critical need as much as, I think it potentially could. That's all.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No?
Roll call. Let's see, Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Doyle,
Yes.
Ms. Edmonds,
No.
Ms. Flowers,
Yes.
Ms. Jacoba,
Yes.
Mr. Scobie,
Yes.
Ms. Tedros.
Yes.
Me, Ms. Glennon, yes. So. 7 yes, 1 no.
No fun sitting next to you.
All right, motion passes. All right, next,
Same, except I make a motion that the Milford Board of Education approve the educational specifications for the esports arena project at Joseph A. Foran High School and authorize the superintendent to begin the application process to the Commissioner of the Department of Administrative Services for reimbursement of eligible costs for this project.
is there a second?
Second.
Any comments? Discussion? Just one point of clarification, both of these projects have already been approved, and this is just to move forward with
Yes.
the
Reimbursed.
reimbursement paperwork, correct?
Approved by the state?
Approved by this, approval to move forward. They're in the went through the capital improvement process.
Yes.
They-
It's already in the hands of the
They're-
So
committee.
they're in the hands of the permanent schools committee at
Yes,
this point.
Board of Aldermen have approved it.
The
and it
horse
is in
has
permanent
left the
schools.
stable.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Roll call, Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Doyle,
Yes.
Ms. Edmonds,
No.
Flowers,
Yes.
Mr. Kova,
Yes.
Mr. Scobie,
Yes.
Ms. Tedros,
Yes.
myself, yes. 7 yes, 1 no. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, next agenda item is public comment. Do you have anybody in the audience who wishes to make public comment tonight? Speakers may offer objective comments about school operations and programs. The board encourages speakers not to express personal complaints or defamatory comments about the Milford Board of Education personnel or any person associated with Milford Public School System. Security issues and matters relating to negotiations and grievances will not be permitted. Consistent with the principles of the Federal Education Right to Privacy Act, discussion of students is prohibited absent parental waiver. Public comment does not allow for two-way conversation between speakers and the board. We welcome and appreciate your comments and opinions, and all will be taken into consideration. Please note our meetings are televised and live streamed on YouTube. We ask that you state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Public comment on the committee of the whole meeting is limited to agenda items only.
Hey guys, I'm Babs Donnelly. I've spoken before. I'm at 52 Meadowside. And a couple things I just wanted to bring to your attention is just that I didn't see anything in the CIP about the design for Harborside, and Harborside will need sort of some changes and modifications to have portables, and maybe that requires CIP funding. I don't know if it does. That's outside my scope, but I just thought that, I noticed the other things that were missing, so I thought maybe it's possible I caught another thing. And the other thing is that I do think that the, and I've said this before, but I do think the plan for the long-term facility is both aspirational and then sometimes a little bit, it doesn't bring in reality quite as much as it should, and there are ways to project cost increases. And I don't have Wi-Fi access right now, so I have numbers on this, but Pumpkin Delight was off by about 35%. And there are certainly tools for how much things are gonna go up, and of course, it is an art, it is a science, but I don't think that the plan really, doesn't really incorporate cost increases over time. It's a very long time. And I do think that, I think the board will run into trouble, and I think the city will run into trouble if it is not more transparent about how much this project will cost. And if it's 35% more over the $1.5 billion, it's approaching $2 billion. And if you want to make sure that your priorities are met, you have to make sure that you're making a good faith effort to represent the costs. I think there are ways of doing this. I think it hasn't yet been done entirely. Just something to keep in mind. Thanks, guys.
Just to clarify, the plan did include a 3.5% compounded increase.
That's very modest, and I know I'm not supposed to have a conversation.
Compounded though, it's compounded
Oh,
year
no,
over
it's
year.
very modest. It's still a very modest increase.
Yes,
Hi, Alan Stern, 326 West Main Street. I'm Vice President of the Milford Education Association. I haven't had the pleasure to talk with you before, so nice to introduce myself finally. I just wanted to comment on the ed specifications for the esports arenas at the two high schools. I'm a little more familiar with foreign, a little less so with law and how its space is utilized, but I do have just two comments on this. First off, when it comes to the space at foreign, first off, I have not seen the architectural plans myself. They were not part of the record, so I can't really speak with any great authority here. But it is my understanding, and could be wrong, that multiple classrooms will be turned into this space. So just to sort of put it out there, I fear at least at foreign, you might be losing multiple instructional spaces to turn them into one space. And I do know that at various times, these multiple spaces have been used concurrently. So that's one thing. The other one is there's nothing here about the impact on the existing classroom space. So some of the spaces are currently used for these purposes. Some of the spaces are for computer instructional design, CAD, that sort of thing. I think, again, I don't have the architectural plans. I think some of the plans, at least for foreign, will impact additional instructional space that is not used for these purposes and does not, I don't know what plans there are to accommodate any such changes. Some of this space is very unique. Specifically, I'm thinking of the art space, the digital media space next door that has a darkroom. That is highly specialized space that is very difficult to replicate elsewhere in the building. So again, I can't really speak with authority on this, but I can just say that those are some concerns. And again, I can't truly speak for the law space and how it's currently utilized. I don't know how the changes would affect that utilization at law. I also don't know how those changes would affect things like, I'm aware at law when the temperature, I'm talking about air conditioning, when the temperature exceeds a certain amount, they move the classes from the second floor to the first. And they use the TLC space sometimes for that purpose. I don't know if this would affect that again, just some points there. Thank you.
yeah. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
if there's no objection, we'll adjourn at 9:05. Any objection? Not hearing any, we're adjourned at 9:05. Objection.
Totally kidding. Never object. Would never happen.